got a pretty good crowd here. I'd like to welcome the Five County and the Orange County Beekeepers, our neighbors, for joining us tonight. And it's nice to see Don, and a special thank you to Jerry for being our speaker this evening. So the first thing I'm going to ask is for the Chatham County Beekeeping Association. We're going to have our annual business meeting following the speaker tonight. So please hang around, and we're going to vote on officers, and I'll get you caught up on all our Bee Club business after our speakers. So I won't waste everyone's time in the front of this. Hang around if you're a member of the Chatham Beekeepers till the end, if you don't mind. So I'm going to introduce Jerry Hayes. And Jerry's been a columnist for Bee Culture for over 3 decades. Jerry, you don't look that old, I'll be honest.
It's all digital, Jody. It's all digital.
Okay. Jerry was the head apiarist for the state of Florida when the colony collapse disorder struck America, and of all states to be the head of, Florida had to be one of the most challenging ones, considering how many people overwinter their bees there and such. So you were really in the hot spot when that hit. So what an amazing experience that must have been. Jerry's a founding member of the Colony Collapse Working Group and a founding member of the Bee Informed Partnership and a member of the steering committee of the Honeybee Health Coalition, which that's the website where we use the Varroa tool that we've talked about. It's a very valuable tool, and that's one of the best online things I've found out there as far as deciding what kind of treatment to use. So what a great lineup of accomplishments. So, well, Jerry, I'm going to hand it over to you, and we look forward to your talk tonight. Thank you.
No, thank you for the honor of being asked. And let me see if I can do this right. And I'm sure there's somebody there smarter than I am that can help me out here. Can you all see that?
Not yet. I think what you have to do, Jerry, after you click on share screen, is find the screen that you want to share and click on that, and then it will share.
Okay, so I thought I had done that. Hang on a second. Well, silly. Let me try this again. I'm a beekeeper. I apologize.
That's okay. I mean, like I say, they probably voted.
All right, you still can't see it, right?
Okay. This is the speaker from
you're unmuted, so they might can hear us talking right now.
All right, so I'm going to hit share screen. Yeah. And then I'm going to go down. Can you all see that?
No.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
Not yet. What should happen when you click on the green share screen at the bottom is you should have a pop-up of multiple different options to share, because I think you actually did it a second ago with I think you did manage to share your Zoom. So if you're trying to share your PowerPoint, right, the PowerPoint has to already be up and open, right, and then you should be able to share that. When you click on it.
Because I got 3 choices: basic, advanced, or files. Does it make any difference?
That's odd.
Yeah.
Hang on for just a second. I'm going to click. No. Oh, it should be under basic. So what should happen is, like, if I just clicked mine and it has my web browser and then everything. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
So you got them.
Yay.
Yay. Okay. So how do I get rid of the slides on the left?
You'll do it just like you were driving any regular PowerPoint presentation at this point. Whatever your little button is that you would click on to actually have this be a presentation on a big screen, that's what you do now.
Yeah, if you go up to the menu and go to slideshow
Okay,
and then play from,
start.
yes, there you go, perfect.
All right. Well, that only took 20 minutes, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I'm joking. Can everybody hear me, I guess is the question, and can you see me?
Yes.
All right,
All
good.
good.
So thank you for your patience. This talk I have done several times, and many times I've upset some people because they think it's an attack on them personally. The reason I want to share this with you is because we need facts in order to be good beekeepers. We need to be good bee managers. And we can't do that in the general way that humans act. And so without facts, we can't have any cooperation. All right, now I can't advance my slides. That's nice. Oh, hang on a second here. All right. Humans are tribal. We like being in groups. We belong to clubs. We belong to beekeeping organizations because whatever we belong to and believe in has a way of already proving what we believe. We try to do those things that agree with what we already think about and desire to do. So confirmation bias is a tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. There again, when we have certain beliefs, certain ideas, certain thoughts that agree with what we already have in our brain, that's what we accept. And because we are tribal, we want to be socially accepted. So we tend to favor and agree with people who agree with us. And I can't see your faces or your hands, but everybody think about your friends. Do you have any friends, close friends, that continually disagree with you or you disagree with them? No, we don't. We get with people who agree with us and share our beliefs also. We have a tendency to want to put our head into sand and not see what's going on around us, but only what's going on inside of us. And as an example, I was a messy kid, like maybe some of you were as well. My mom, I think she did confirmation bias as well because she knew I was a messy kid. And sometimes I would try to please her and I'd go into my room and I'd pick clothes up and get all the bugs and stuff in jars off my dresser and hang my clothes up and straighten up and put some things away and what have you. And then I'd be really, really pleased with myself and go get my mom to show her what I had done. And she would come into my room and always find that sock that I had forgotten behind the bed or the dresser or what have you. And so this confirmed to her that I was a messy kid. That confirmed her confirmation bias about me. And some other examples are, students perhaps that will write a paper in college to please the professor. So they'll pick a topic out that will please the professor so that they'll get a good grade. Or, my goodness, we've all been through the last couple months of of so many things on the 6 o'clock news, and those reporters who will, only interview experts that support their views or thoughts or what have you. And then that employer who's looking for a new job applicant and looking at their resume or CV, and they've got all sorts of good things on it, and education and experience. And the boss thinks that this is the greatest person they can ever hire, but he fails to really comprehend that part at the bottom where they serve time in federal prison for murder. So how does all this work into what's killing my bees and what are the possibilities? As you all know, our industry, our apiary industry is under siege from pest predators and diseases. And I was before Varroa, and so I've been able to be here probably like Don for Varroa and tracheal mites and small hive beetles and all these things. And so we have a lot of introduced pests and diseases that are impacting our colonies in a way that hadn't been before. Our European bee had never evolved and developed among all these things. And so there are a lot of health concerns about our colonies and how we manage them and what's happening and why do some of them die over time. So what I've done is take the Bee Informed Partnership, the BIP survey data that I want to go through you. Some of you may have participated in filling out the BIP survey about your colonies, what you thought had happened to them, what you used for treatments and all this kind of stuff, and show you this kind of concentrated data that the BIP survey has come up with. And as you can see here by this chart, our total annual losses are pretty high. They're above 30% over that 365 day period. And so that's a lot. If you're a small business person, and most of us are hobby backyard people, so this isn't a terrible thing, but if you're a small business person and you're losing 30, 40, 50% of your business every year, that's not a good model, is it? You can't go and get a loan from the bank. They're going to laugh at you. And so we have to do better. We can do better as beekeeper managers. So from the BIP data, this is about average winter losses based on number of colonies and experience of beekeepers. And as you can see, backyard beekeepers reported that they lost about 45.2% of their colonies over winter. Commercial, a lot lower. Probably because they have maybe a little bit more experience. And there again, this is a business and they have to keep this business going. And then of course the sideliners fit in there in the center. And the average winter loss by year, as you saw in the other graph, it's going to be around 30–40% losses per year, depending on what is reported by those filling out the survey. Now this is the one that really aggravates me. Average winter loss by beekeeper, and they ask for a reason for colony loss. And 67.1% of those responding say, I don't know. I don't know why I lost my colonies. And then they give a whole bunch of other opportunities here to maybe pick out some things. Colony collapse disorder, which, as you all know, isn't a real thing anymore. That's what we named it early on because we didn't know what it was. We called it a disorder and thought like everything else, it would disappear in a few years. But colony collapse isn't an issue. It isn't a term that fits into something specific. It's basically Varroa and the Varroa virus legacy. So some people said it's colony collapse disorder, meaning that they haven't really looked or read the Bee Culture magazine or anything else to actually find out what has transpired over the years. Queen failure, some people said 47% said queen failure, and that's possible, over winter, depending on the size of the colony and other pest predators and disease issues, that might be one.
Right.
My colonies died over winter because they were weak. Well, if they were weak, why didn't the beekeeper do something about it? If they knew they were weak, why didn't they explore, why is my colony weak? My colony's weak, I'm just gonna let it go here and let it die. Nosema, 58.4%, yeah, that's possible. That certainly Nosema would add to a shortened lifespan over winter. Varroa, 57.6%, yes, absolutely true. Pesticides, 64.8%. What pesticides? This is winter time. Is it the pesticides the beekeeper used to put into his or her colony? Because those are insecticides. So that one is a little bit iffy as well. Small hive beetle, 55% said small hive beetle caused my colonies to die over winter. Small hive beetles are a secondary predator. They only move into a colony that's weak, that's producing stress pheromones that the small hive beetle can pick up on and target that colony as not being able to police itself and looking to reproduce and raise their babies in that colony. Starvation, 54.6%. My bees died over winter because of starvation. I have to pause here for a second, because if they knew their colony was running out of food or didn't have enough food to go into winter, why didn't they do something about it? And then the last one, well, my bees are poor winterers, so it's not my fault. 66% said, it's poor wintering. It has to be. It's not my fault, and my bees were perfectly healthy, and nothing was bad about them. So you can see that this particular graph of the reasons submitted is pretty flimsy. Loss by beekeeper size. There again, backyard beekeepers, probably because they may be new beekeepers, in that 0 to 3 years or so, and not have had that experience or have a mentor. They're the ones that have the highest winter loss. This is interesting too, because this is about colony management products. You are the beekeeper manager. You are in charge of this livestock. Not any different than if you have a neighbor that has cattle or chickens or anything else. You are the manager, and you are the responsible one for managing the success of this colony. So in looking at pest predators and diseases, this is a kind of a general question here about, did you use any management products? And only 27% said they used any products. 44% said, no, I didn't use anything. And average winter loss by people who used any management product, 51% said, no, I didn't use any product. And so, of course, they had higher winter losses because they weren't managing the colony. They weren't inspecting the colony in any way. Varroa monitoring, if you have, there's 3 words I want you to remember: Varroa, Varroa, Varroa. And so average winter loss per beekeeper for Varroa monitoring techniques. You just can't treat for Varroa. I suppose you could just treat for Varroa, but you're probably going to be treating at the wrong time when they have the lowest level or what have you of parasitism. So there are a variety of ways you can do this. Of course, alcohol wash and sugar rolls and what have you. But of those who had highest winter loss, 43% didn't do anything, knowing that data has showed over the last 30 years that the Varroa/Varroa virus legacy is the biggest issue we have as beekeepers. How many Varroa products were used? The Honeybee Health Coalition has a great guide, Tools for Varroa Management Guide, which goes through Varroa, how to sample, and gives you a whole list of treatment options. It doesn't tell you what to do. It gives you options of what to do based on your counts and the type of product being used. And so the average winter loss by beekeepers, the ones who didn't use any Varroa products, of course, had the highest loss. When you have a parasite on you the size of a soccer ball, and it's eating the fat bodies of your bees and vectoring viruses and causing immunosuppression, then those bees are not going to live as long. And so if they die, a few days sooner in February than they would have, that can lead to winter loss on these long-lived winter bees. Those who use selected Varroa products, of course, had lower levels of loss. Those who did not use selected products or got on the internet, that's the worst thing that's happened to beekeeping, I think, is the internet. You can get on there and you can they are a third-year beekeeper. They are now the world's expert and have a podcast and a blog and a website, and are telling you that you have to do this, that, and the other to save your bees. And most of the time it's incorrect. Those who used the Varroa treatment lost less colonies. Simple as that. We have this issue with the beekeepers, sometimes blaming production agriculture, farmers near them, and what those farmers may be using on their crops to protect their own crops from pest predators and diseases to produce a crop. And so these average winter losses of those that were close or not close to crops is not significant. So what do we know about these overall losses that were reported in the Bee Informed Partnership BIP survey? Average 45.2% loss reported by hobbyists. 67.1% said they don't know why they died. We don't know why they died. They just died. I was watching Netflix and they just died. 55.8% aren't near agricultural production, so it's probably not that. 52.1% didn't treat for Varroa. And we know that Varroa is the largest significant honeybee health issue in the industry. And 52% said they weren't even gonna, acknowledge it. 52% have said didn't use any products. So you see what happens, your bees die. 43% didn't sample for Varroa before treatment. So this sampling is important through the year with an alcohol wash, say it's the most accurate, so that you know when your colonies might need to be treated, because the metric is if you have 3 mites or more per 100 bees, that colony is dead. It just doesn't know it. Remember that 2/3 of your mites are going to be behind capped cells during the season and hiding, if you will. And so if you have 3 mites, somebody can do the math here, 3 mites per 100 bees, and there's 30,000 bees in a colony, that's a lot of mites. that haven't been treated. That's why you have to knock those levels down. And 39% of beekeepers had 5 years experience, less than 5 years of experience. So that equals to that 45.2% loss. Pesticide survey by APHIS a few years ago. We're all concerned about the chemicals that are in the beehive. And honeybees are environmental samplers as they go out in that 2.5 mile radius to forage for nectar and pollen and propolis, what have you. And as you can see by this APHIS pie chart, that they found a lot of products that the bees brought back. There's fungicides and herbicides, and you can look down there very small in that kind of green there to the right little slot. Everybody says that the world's coming to end because of neonicotinoids. That's the number of neonicotinoids found in there. The largest part of that pie chart of chemicals that they found were the ones that you and I put in a beehive. And so we have to be aware and choose correctly products that might not have a residue issue in there, because this is a balancing act of how do you protect your colony against Varroa, but how do you also protect the rest of the colony and the residues left in there in the future. So this is a balancing game, and this is where that Tools for Varroa Management Guide is so helpful. This is a graph from a couple of years ago from a journal of insects, and it's showing Varroa control products that and comparing them to control of Varroa versus bee mortality. Killing a little bug and a big bug is super hard to do without damaging the big bug, the honeybee. And you can see checkmate, which is an organophosphate, which isn't probably used a whole lot. Boy, it really takes care of Varroa in that kind of that dark orange color there. Really does a great job. But you can also see the bee mortality is significant because of it as well. A half a dose of checkmate, which probably isn't according to label directions, also kills Varroa well and has low bee mortality. Apistan, which is fluvalinate. We have some resistance issues with that, but one treatment, maybe once a year or something, kills the heck out of Varroa and has little effect on honeybees. Apivar, which is amitraz, used widely now, but we're having some resistance issues show up. Yeah. Shows that it kills Varroa well and little effect on honeybees. Apiguard, which is the thymol gel product, kills Varroa fairly well, has little residual and has little effect on honeybees. Hopguard, we're not even going to talk about that because you can see where those chart numbers are. And then of course the controls that nothing's going on there. And then we have the chemical residues in wax. Beeswax is a fatty acid. It hangs on to everything. And you can see here by this chart and graph, some Varroicides and their residuals afterwards, and what's found stored in the beeswax that's being exposed to bees all the time. So our parasitic Varroa mite is our big issue, and has been for a long time, but with so many new beekeepers, I don't know that they really take this as a real concern, but it is. Remember the 3 words, Varroa, Varroa, Varroa. We used to think that Varroa was like a baby vampire, that the Varroa would get on a bee, pierce its cuticle and suck its hemolymph, its blood, to get nourishment. Dr. Sammy Ramsey did some research recently and found that varroa mites are actually like a baby werewolf. The varroa mite pierces a cuticle and starts actually eating the tissue, the fat bodies that has a lot of nutrition in it, but it also has a lot of enzymes and hormones and what have you that are important for the honeybee that it's consuming, which causes more issues for our honeybees. And this is why understanding varroa is so important and how controlling it is so important. Because you don't have to, if you want to skydive, you don't have to wear a parachute unless you want to do it again. Well, you don't have to treat for varroa unless you want to buy a nuke or package the next year. And the bee and package, nuke and package business has been tremendous the last few years just because of this issue of poor treatment, poor management of honeybee health and varroa. So this is I hope everybody knows this is not true right here, but everybody points their finger at GMO crops and what they're doing. But GMO crops, the data does not show that the genetically modified part of it or toxins that are produced, the Bt toxins or corn rootworm things are having any effect on honeybees because these are targeted towards other insects other than honeybees. And seed treatments. We're all pointing our fingers at the farmers. You know, when I was a boy, farmers would spray, treat acre after acre after acre after acre of their crops with something so that they could protect the crop from insects and other predators and pests and what have you. But I remember as a boy walking down the road to the school bus stop, and after a farmer had sprayed, seeing the dead possums or dead raccoons and what have you. And so that advanced to, well, we're not going to spray acre after acre. We're going to put it in the furrow as we plant the seed. And so that reduced the exposure as well. And now we have seed treatments where the product is put on the seed. And as you can see here, if an acre of land is 43,000 square feet, and we used to spray 43,000 square feet by 43,000 by 43,000 for the millions of acres that we had, and now we're down to seed treatments. And for corn, seed treatments, that shrinks that exposure level down to 24 square feet. So is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but is it better? Yes, it is better. And I'm assuming it will even get more better. This is our real issue right here. We don't have enough pollinator-friendly fields anymore. We need more of those with flowering plants that help honeybees and other pollinators as well. This is another issue right here. Lawns. Grass is an environmental wasteland. Grass doesn't do anything. It sucks up resources. The figures that are available show that there's approximately 40 to 50 million acres of suburban lawns in the United States, taking 18 million pounds of chemicals and 10,000 gallons of water each to keep them looking like the 18th hole at Augusta. And then we have 48 million acres of asphalt. Have you ever seen a parking lot dug up and turned back into pollinator-friendly ground or even agriculture? No. Asphalt is the last crop. And so how do we deal with all my wonderful optimism that I just shared with you? Well, one of the ways is to be better beekeeper managers. And there's a group called the Honeybee Health Coalition that is a diverse organization of NGOs and government and even big ag and beekeeping and what have you. And they have gotten together to work together to drive educational outreach so that we beekeepers can be better beekeepers. And I've already mentioned this, and I think Jody mentioned it as well. This, everybody should go online and get this and memorize it. Tools for Varroa Management Guide. It has everything in it that you need to know about Varroa, about sampling, about current products that are labeled and registered, and there's about a dozen videos showing you how to sample and how to treat and cultural practices. And so these are great things that you might want to use and are available to use for your next beekeeper meeting for how to be a better beekeeper manager by addressing Varroa based on accurate data. This is a picture of obviously the produce section in the store. This is Whole Foods. They had a project on a couple years ago. It's kind of interesting when you walk into your grocery store. Do you walk into the grocery store and you go right to the aisle? Is the aisle right there of the toilet paper and the cleaning supplies and all that kind of stuff? No. What you walk into is a produce section because that's where the color is, that's where the nutrition is, that's where the smell is, that's what engages you as a consumer. And so this is Whole Foods produce section. Looks very nice. And so Whole Foods wanted to show everybody what their produce section would look like if honeybees hadn't been involved in pollinating a crop to bring that fruit, nut, vegetable to the produce section and to you. This is what it would look like. So this is why honeybees are important, obviously, but this is why you are important. You might not be a commercial beekeeper with 1,000 colonies traveling all around and renting your colonies for pollination here or there and everything through the season, but your bees in your backyard or in an out yard are traveling that 2.5 miles and are pollinating people's gardens, their fruit trees. They're pollinating those trees and plants and flowers in the environment that produce a nut or a seed that feeds a bird or a squirrel or a turkey or deer. And so I want you to understand how important you are as a beekeeper manager, because if your bees aren't healthy, they're not going to go out and do that. They don't have the strength to do that. They're too weak to do that, and they're probably going to get robbed out. And when that happens, all those varroa mites that are in there, they're not stupid. They know that colony's dying, and so they're going to jump on those robbers and be taken back to other colonies. That's called a varroa bomb when that happens. So protecting your colonies protects your neighbors' colonies too. It's kind of like COVID, and everybody's supposed to be wearing a mask. Not so much for you, but protecting your friend or your neighbor. So to finish up here, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but they are not entitled to their own facts. Facts are facts and are truism. That's a difference between opinions and facts. And so we as beekeepers want to use facts. There's tons of data available from not only the Tools for Varroa Management Guide and Honeybee Health Coalition, but by David Tarpey at the university. by Don Hopkins, by American Beekeeper Federation, by the North Carolina. There is tons of factual data available. So you don't have to go rummaging through blogs and podcasts and what have you. You can, but that's after you've gotten your facts and gotten them straight and understand them. So I appreciate this time. I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for questions if we have any.
Really good. Thank you, Jerry. I've got a question. Seeing the BIP bar charts and the reasons that people lose their bees over winter, it does make me wonder, being in North Carolina, we have enough warm days in December and January where our bees are out working and come home empty handed and basically eat their food stores instead of gaining food. They lose food during these months. And when you look at maybe bees in Wisconsin or something, they may hunker down and not come out for months at a time. And of course, you having your background in Florida and all, I would imagine that there's forage for them year round. So I'm wondering regionally, it might be interesting to see those charts over a regional breakdown to see if starvation may be a little worse of a problem here than it is in other places and that type of things.
Yeah, and Jody, you can get on the Bee Informed Partnership website and you can go to your individual state and see the data that was submitted from your state. And I would agree with you that North Carolina and South Carolina and some parts of Georgia and Alabama are just like that. Is you have warm days but little or no forage, and the bees, because it's warm, are eating more food. They're raising brood earlier, and there's not those things coming in there. But to have a beekeeper over 50% of the time report that their bees died of starvation tells me that they're not going out and taking a look at that colony or taking that 15 minutes to lift up the back of the colony to see what its weight is and what have you. And so there again, it's disconcerting to think that the beekeepers aren't checking their colonies as often as they should. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and it has been an odd fall so far. We actually had a decent fall flow, which is very unusual. But since then, since the aster and the goldenrod is done, they've been consuming it pretty rapidly.
Yeah, no, and they're consuming it rapidly, and beekeepers know they're consuming it rapidly. And so the head scratcher for me is, why aren't they checking to see what it is and putting food on so that they can fill in those gaps? And I think that's just poor management, Don.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, something I've just kind of noticed that wasn't really mentioned is just but it kind of goes along with what you're saying is I've noticed this view of people, people want things organic. They want things as natural as possible. And so there's this, it seems like a lot of people want to go towards that, trying to do things all natural and everything, but they don't, a lot of these beginners, they want to go all natural and be without pest, the miticides and everything, but it's like they don't really spend the time learning on how to just keep the bees through a winter in the first place. I just find that I find that is one issue I feel like a lot of people are running into, because they want to be natural, but then they end up losing so many more bees because of that.
Yeah, and I hate to point fingers, Brandon, but most of these folks, and bless their hearts, they want to be natural. And this is generally the demographics of that people is that they're 55 years or older. The kids have grown. They sold the SUV. They read the Mother Earth News in 1975, and now they want to save the world with honeybees. And they think that by leaving them alone at this point in time, that that's natural and organic. And so this is where, beekeeper mentors, if they seek them out, or joining a beekeeping club or association is so helpful, because it's if it was easy to be a beekeeper, everybody would be doing it, but it's not easy. You guys have to be smarter than I was when I started beekeeping, because when I started beekeeping, the only thing you had to worry about was American foulbrood, and you could go hunting and fishing the rest of the year. But now we have so many of these health issues that you have to be on top of your game if you're going to be successful. Here's an example. I travel a lot before COVID, of course, but I was in an airport. I think it was in Houston, going someplace, and the flight was delayed. And so all of us were standing around, just kind of standing and waiting for the next announcement of when the plane would be in and we could get to where we were going. There was this lady standing next to me, and she just started chatting, and she said, what do you do? And I just kind of passed it off real quick. I said, oh yeah, I'm in agriculture. What do you do? And she said, I'm with PETA. And PETA is that group for the people for the ethical treatment of animals. And I said, I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done now? And so, and she said, what part of agriculture are you in? I said, well, I'm a beekeeper. And she said, oh, a beekeeper. How are the bees? Are they healthy? What have you? And so I did my thing. You make a fist and you put it on you. And this is a pheromone on a honeybee's body. And they're causing all sorts of health issues. And I went on for a while. And then I said, it's hard to control this pheromone. And some people choose not to treat for the pheromone, even though there are control options out there. And this is a lady from PETA who said, there are control options out there and people refuse to use them. That's horrific. And that will always stick in my mind, that a lady from PETA recognized that, even though they don't think about this often, that she recognized that having labeled control products to keep an animal healthy, like a honeybee, was important, and we should use them, just like it's important to use them on cats and dogs and what have you. So I'll never forget that. You guys are very quiet.
I have a question. I was curious, where do you find your confirmation bias comes from? And what's it about, if you do have any?
No, I'm actually, Tara, I'm perfect. So I appreciate that. No, we all have confirmation bias. It depends on where you grew up and who your family was and who you taught and where you go to school and all that other kind of stuff. But at least for beekeeping, because I love it, I've been able to travel the world because of honeybees. Who gets a chance to do that? It's amazing. And so I have always gone for reliable, reputable data about honeybee health, honeybee management, how to extract properly, make creamed honey and what have you. And so I've defaulted to smart people and data to fill in my my personal gaps about honeybees. And certainly, do I have opinions? Yes, I have opinions. Okay, here's an opinion. Oxalic acid. I don't like it. And I'll tell you why I don't like it. It works great. And it has been used in Northern Europe for, golly, several decades. In Northern Europe, say Netherlands, Denmark, what have you, they wait until they can in January, February, when there's no brood. And all those varroa mites that I told you, 2/3 of the mites are behind cap cells, aren't there anymore. They're exposed. And so they do one treatment then with oxalic acid, and it works really, really well to control varroa mites and doesn't hurt honeybees all that much. You're talking about putting a caustic material, an acid, on an insect to kill another insect, even though it's an acarine. But it's the same kind of thing. One problem we have in the US is instead of following label directions that says use it once at one time, I've heard beekeepers say they're using it 6, 7, 8 times a year. And so let me give you this example. Let's say that you have a parasite on you the size of a rat, and we can't get that parasite off you, and you can't reach and get it, and what have you. So we decide, let's do this. Let's lock you in your closet over there, and we're going to vaporize an acid in that closet. And we're going to hurt, kill, or damage that parasitic rat on you. So we do that. We lock you in a closet. We vaporize some acids in there, and it causes that parasitic rat to fall off. Yay! But you're locked in that closet with a caustic acid. So your eyes have been watering. Your nose probably burns a little bit. Your lips might be burning. You may have burned some of the hair on your eyebrows or something because of that acid in there. If you do that one time, you can probably recover okay and what have you. If you do this 6 or 7 times, like some beekeepers are doing it to their colonies, the bee's nose is at the top of their antenna. And if you treat, the data show you treat more than twice with a caustic acid and acid like oxalic, it burns their nose and they can't smell. And what do bees do? What's one of their communication? It's with odors, isn't it? Is there brood odor? Is there queen odor? Is there other odors? And that's why sometimes queens are being replaced so quickly. Or the workers aren't recognizing that there is a queen because they can't smell her, and so you get laying workers. So there's also collateral damage from all this stuff. So you have to be smart and follow the label directions and follow what the data show of how to use products properly. There, I'm done. I'm getting away from, I'm stepping away from the podium.
Oh, that was very helpful, very insightful.
Yeah.
How about Formic Pro? That wasn't on your slide.
No, it wasn't on my slide. Formic Pro, okay, so Formic is an acid. It's kind of interesting. Oxalic doesn't do this, but Formic does. In the cappings on brood, that capping is permeable. It has little holes in it because, of course, that larva pupil has to breathe, right? So it has holes in it. Formic, when you put it in there, will actually penetrate through those holes and go into the cell and kill, hurt, or damage varroa that are in that cell. But it also can kill, hurt, or damage the larva pupa in there. When it's outside, not as much, because you have those mites and they have a cuticle and what have you. But if you overuse that, the same thing happens. Formic, though, has an extra part to it because it can enter the cell and damage your colonies. We tested Formic when I was in Florida because they wanted to see what it would do at higher temperatures. And so we put it on as they had told us in the protocol. And it was, in the 70s or 80s. And we sent the bees up into the trees. We had 50-pound, what looks like swarms up in the trees. So these products are temperature and humidity sensitive. There again, follow label directions because you don't want all these crazy things happening to your colonies because that's an additional stress. And the bees are under enough stress as it is.
Thanks.
You had a slide about the GMO treated seeds. And I was curious that once that seed has been planted and the plant grows up and is producing pollen and the bees collect that pollen and take it home and consume it, is there any difference between that pollen and any other pollen, or has there been any tests done, or is pollen basically the same?
Well, yeah,
element?
no, every pollen from different plants is different. Pollen is the male element. It's that container that holds basically the plant sperm in it that's transported, and the bees have to ferment that so that they can get nutrition out of it. Most of those seed treatment crops, are corn. Bees don't visit corn, unless there's nothing else out there and what have you. And so, yeah, some of that pesticide or fungicide can become systemic in the plant. But by time it makes it through the plant up into the anthers and gets into pollen, it's generally not in large amounts, parts per million or parts per billion. Not that it's not there, but it just is in such small levels. It's kind of like you or I. You could take a fat sample of me out of my belly, send it to the CDC and have them analyze it. And they're going to find all sorts of scary things in Jerry's fat. Not only chemicals, but, maybe viruses and everything else, but on such small levels or such small quantities that Jerry's body is handling it for right now. And so this is that awkward balance that we have to go through.
So how do you like your new job?
So I've been editor of Bee Culture magazine for about a year now. And so I've never been an editor of everything. I wrote the classroom section of the American Bee Journal for 35 years and written papers and all that kind of stuff. But being an editor of a magazine is totally new. And I have some wonderful people that have been super patient with me over this last year. So I'm very grateful to them. It's kind of fun though, because magazine is kind of entrepreneurial, if you will. I'm talking to people to write articles, certain topics. I want to have a better mix in bee culture. I want to get different voices out there, and so that part has been fun. It sure has. And I'll tell you, if I get 3 more questions, whoever asks those questions, you email me tomorrow and I will give you a free digital subscription to Bee Culture magazine for a year.
Well, I was going to ask a question, even though you weren't giving away magazines. But I appreciate very much your presentation, especially around new beekeepers and things that, where you get facts. I've noticed the beginner beekeeper forums are rife with seemingly inaccurate opinions. and you know what they say about opinions.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, you know, I'm a first year beekeeper. I have a neighbor that I'm partnered with, and we have we're both in our first year. I've been studying for a couple years, but I'm just I'm guessing, or I'm just wondering, what advice would you have coming out of the first year, and getting ready to go into the second year, like for a new beekeeper after the first season?
Yeah, you know, and when I was a first year beekeeper, you know, I didn't have any mentors or anybody else. And I made, you know, I goofed up, but I didn't have varroa mites to worry about. I did other stupid things. And so if you've made it through your first year, you've sampled early enough for varroa. And I say early enough because what you want to do, you know, probably in North Carolina, and Don, you correct me on this, but you know, what we're looking at is producing winter bees. As the days start getting shorter, the bees produce a different kind of a worker. It's a winter bee, a winter worker bee that has a longer life because it has more fat bodies in it. It has more nutrition stored and what have you. You know, our summer bees live 6 to 8 weeks, but these winter bees have to live several months. So you probably, you know, need to sample and treat for you know, varroa. I'm guessing, and Don, I'm just going to guess here, but I'm thinking, you know, late August, early September is probably when you want to do that. Is that right or wrong, Don?
Yeah, you nailed it. Even sooner if possible, at least to do your monitoring. Most people are harvesting by mid-July, or if not sooner, and you know, that's when the bees are at their peak, and that's also about when the mites are at their peak. And then once you start monitoring, then you may not need to do it, but as you mentioned the mite bomb, I'm not so sure. I don't know about Dennis on that one, but they do, the level of mites to bees, particularly adult bees, continues to rise all the way through October. So if you haven't treated by September, you're really struggling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because what Don's saying is that bee population, that bee colony is shrinking to go through winter because they don't have enough resources, and they're replacing those summer bees with winter bees. Yeah. And so, you know, all those mites that were on bees or behind capped cells are becoming exposed. And so your proportion of mites to bees rises, as Don said. And this is where you want to kill them soon so that your winter bees are healthy to be able to make it through winter. So it's kind of this balance. And so to get back to your question is, you know, varroa sampling, you know, be sure they got enough food on there, any other diseases, and, you know, and then go through that. And I'm sure that, you know, the Beekeeping Association, there's, you know, experienced beekeepers, and Don can answer all your questions, or his inspectors. And so there's a lot of resources out there. So don't feel alone about this. And are you going to be perfect? No, you're not going to be perfect. But the goal is, you know, it's kind of like getting a puppy. You can take the puppy to the vet. You can get the puppy shots. You can buy the puppy food. You can watch the puppy grow and all this other kind of stuff. But if you don't take the puppy to the vet and you don't feed it, you know, good food and what have you, you got a puppy that's going to be a larger dog covered with fleas and ticks, and the ribs are going to be showing. So that's kind of the analogy.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you said about the oxalate too, Jerry. Not only are you doing some damage to the bees as they get hit more than once, those rats that you're talking about are going to reinvade that bee. You know, bees emerge every day, not every week.
Yeah, no, you know, and that's a good point. Let's say in the summertime, the queen's laying, let's say she's laying 1,000 eggs a day. All right. So that means at some point after 21 days, you got 1,000 bees emerging every day. And so this is where sampling and treatment and what have you, because you have a new cadre of bees emerging with their friends of royal mite that has reproduced on them every day. And so, golly, yeah, no, that's a great point, Don.
Still need a couple more questions though.
Yeah, I need 2 more questions so I can give away 2 more digital subscriptions.
Someone asked in the chat about your opinion on heat treatment.
Yeah, they don't work. Next question. Golly, a long time ago on a planet far, far away, before we had Varroa here in the United States, the old Soviet Union had Varroa mites. And one of their treatment methods, 2 treatment methods, were 1 to shake all the bees out of the colony, put them in kind of a screen tumbler thing and heat it up so that the bees would become overheated, the mites would become overheated and fall off. That damaged a lot of bees, of course, as you can see. And then they tried heating just the colony itself. And what they found was that when you heat a colony, obviously the temperature changes in there, but the humidity levels do as well. And so they found that in larval food, especially, moisture would evaporate and change that larval food so the larva couldn't access it well enough. And then those bees that were behind capped cells would become overheated because they were bringing it just below the temperature that wax melts. And so, yes, did it kill, hurt, or damage varroa mites? Yes. Did it kill, hurt, or damage honeybees? Yes. And so there's better ways to do this than that. Even though it sounds very cool, it isn't perfect because of temperature, humidity, parameters within a beehive.
Also, another question kind of go along with that though. Wouldn't that also hurt the sperm in the queen's spermatheca as well? Because that has to be at a certain temperature, and if it gets too hot, then you're basically potentially sterilizing your queen. It would seem like as well.
Yeah, and so what the bees do in a lot of those cases, but if the colony's sealed, as you said, Brandon, that happens. What the bees try to do is fan around the queen to keep her cool. But yes, that can happen absolutely as well.
Jerry, this is Lori Hawkins. I've got a comment. I think something that I've appreciated a little bit more over the past 2 years is we've got all these treatments out there and some are better than others, but all of them have some sort of, bad side effect one way or another.
Sure.
But we've got to use something.
Right.
What I've come to appreciate is that I can do that treatment, and I think I've done my job for the next couple months, but I haven't followed up. It's when I did not follow up with a post-treatment test that I found that my bees got in trouble.
No, and Lori, that's a perfect point because
Frozen.
but you don't know because we have so many mites out there that are resistant to things, or we've done something wrong that, yeah, you need to sample, treat, and sample again. So absolutely right, Lori.
I learned the hard way, and then I do it again.
Well, no, and that's, yeah, welcome to beekeeping. Yeah, we do that. And isn't it amazing how flexible, how nice honeybees are? We can do a lot of things to a honeybee colony until we kill them. But it takes a lot to kill them sometimes, and then all of a sudden they just die on us. And so, using that facts, using that data to make those decisions as much as you can is super important.
I have a quick
This is-
question. What do you do if you've say you just treated, say with Apivar or Formic or something like that, and you completed your treatment, you resample about 2 weeks later, and you still are above threshold, and you might have used something else earlier in the season, and you're kind of running out of options to treat.
Yeah, and so there again, that's a great question. And so that's where the Honeybee Health Coalition Tools for Varroa Management Guide comes in. What I do is I start out with a product that has probably the lowest impact, and that's the thymol gel Apiguard. I use that. Now it's only about 85-90% effective on varroa mite, but it has really, really, really low, as you saw, I think on one of the slides, impact on honeybees. And so I follow the label directions. I use Apiguard, and most of the time, it does good enough to knock those varroa down to that 3 or less. If it doesn't do that because of temperature, humidity, or the colony's so big or what have you, then I ratchet it up to maybe a more aggressive product, and kind of do it in steps like that. And as Don said, you got to get an early start on this, and just in case that happens. But there are lots of options out there to do that. And there again, sampling. The alcohol wash is the best. It's the most accurate. Sugar roll is the next, almost as accurate. Anybody who says you can put these sticky boards in your bottom and pull those out, I would have to challenge them on that, because every colony has varroa mites, and varroa are going to fall off and going to die and everything else. And so what falls off doesn't tell you how many varroa mites are potentially there per X number of bees, 3 per 100 bees or so. It's just showing you have varroa mites, but everybody's got varroa mites, so I'm not quite sure what it tells you.
Gary, some of the treatments, the chemical treatments, they say the mites can build up a resistance to. The acids, I understand they can't build a resistance to those. What about the thymol, the Apiguard? Is that something that the mites can build a resistance to, or is that kind of like the acids?
Yeah, no, it's an essential oil. It's thyme, herb thyme that you might be using here next week in something for your Thanksgiving dinner. But it's a thyme oil, so it acts differently than the acids do, and so it has a little bit less collateral damage than the others do, and so that's why I start out with it first.
Do you happen to know anybody that, or nobody we can look up online that is doing active research on like the viruses that come from varroa mites?
Boy, you know what? That's another great question. I've read, and I'd have to actually go back and look things up. Viruses are difficult. I think there's 30 some viruses that have been identified in honeybees, just like you or I have lots of viruses, but our immune system is keeping those in check. And some of the reasons our immune system is keeping those in check is that because of our diet, we might be taking additional vitamins or what have you. We're getting enough sleep. Stress is reduced. We might be doing some exercises, that kind of thing. So they've looked at viruses, but it's kind of like viruses or you and I, or COVID or what have you. How do you treat honeybees for viruses with a vaccine or something else? Nobody has wanted to invest that kind of money in it. And it's like anything else. If you got enough money, you can figure it out in a short period of time, kind of like we've heard about the COVID vaccines here the last few days. You got enough money, you can do it. But nobody wants to sink enough money into there. So that's where we have to go to controlling Varroa mites, because Varroa, when they're feeding, well, it's kind of like you get bitten by a mosquito. When a mosquito bites you, she spits into you to stop your immune system from closing off that feeding site. That's where you get malaria and Ebola and all these other kind of things, and that mosquito spit. Varroa does the same thing. When it chews through a hole through the cuticle of a honeybee, it spits into the honeybee to be sure that the bee can't seal off that feeding site. And so there's viruses in there and other things in there. And so that's where, you have to be aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it. Because Varroa, the less they can bite and chew and spit and introduce viruses or slow down the immune system of a honeybee is very important.
Thanks.
Is there anything to that research on mushrooms, polypores for the antiviral? I think there was something out of Washington State and
Yeah,
Static.
there's a lot of stuff out there, and Washington State, and I forgot the guy's name. Stamets, is that his name? That has the mushroom stuff.
Yes, that's his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah. No. There's all sorts of data out there about all sorts of things. But and getting older and grumpier and more pessimistic all the time. If it was amazing, if it was accurate, if there was a lot of positive data, somebody would have jumped on that to come up with a product and a delivery method in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And it hasn't happened. So I'm just kind of sitting back and watching.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Jerry, that was very informative. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. I felt like you were unapologetically factual, and I learned a lot. So thank you.
Well, you got some of my opinion too, so I apologize for that.
Oh, good.
Anyway, so no, but thank you all for the honor. Thank you for listening and realize that, and truthfully, we've heard this in other ways here the last many months, but we as beekeepers are all in this together. And we really have to share with each other those facts and where we got them. And so this is where, the CCBA is so important as basically a place for educational outreach so that your members can be successful. And so thank you there again for inviting me, and I appreciate it. And if I can do anything for any of you in the future, let me know. And for those 3 or 4 people or however many it was, email me. You can look me up online someplace, and I'll get you and give me contact information. I'll get you a free digital issue of Bee Culture for a year. Okay.
That is wonderful.
All right. Thank you again. You guys have a great evening, and golly, great holiday and season, and stay safe and well.
Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
I ask that the Chatham County beekeepers please hang around for a little bit. We're going to have our business meeting now. And I want to thank the 5 Cs and the Orange County folks for joining us. So we had a pretty good crowd. Thanks for joining in. And
Yeah.
you too, Don.
Thanks for having us.
So glad you could join us for this one.
Thanks, Don, for coming too. We appreciate it.
That's okay. I think I'll stick around and lurk on your business
Oh.
for a bit.
Feel free to. Awesome. All right, folks. We're going to get on with our business now. So first, I want to thank Julia for lining up Jerry Hayes. That was a really good talk, and thank you, Julia, for reaching out to him and getting that lined up. That was really good.
Oh, you are welcome. It was great.
Did a good job all year of getting speakers for us. This has been a really trying year. I mean, we started off January, it was just as normal could be, and pretty quickly things got really weird, and we've tried to keep the train on the tracks as best as we could, and there were some